Hello everyone, Prime here, and today should be Monday, meaning we're going to be covering Serqet, her personality, purpose, story, relationships, and all of that good stuff. Serqet is a goddess who I feel like, much better than some of the other gods and goddesses that we've covered up to this point, represents a balance between good and evil quite nicely. She doesn't really skew too closely to one side or the other. Her alternative names are Serqet and Serqet, spelt with a K instead of a Q. She was either a scorpion-headed woman or a human-headed scorpion, having the upper body of a woman up to the waist area, and from the waist area she would have a scorpion's body. There are also some places that seem to be very specific about the fact that she may have had a literal scorpion on her head rather than having a scorpion's head. I'm not too sure what she would look like in that instance, but I'll leave your imaginations to run wild for that. The body's preservation was very important to the ancient Egyptians, and during the mummification process, important organs were stored in canopic jars containing a person's liver, intestines, lungs, and stomach, and each organ received its own jar. The four sons of Horus decorated these jars, i.e. their heads decorated these jars. Not literally, there were, specially designed heads that were just put on the jars. You couldn't literally take the heads of these gods and have them cover several thousand, several hundreds of thousands. You get the point, Egyptian bodies. So, yes. Imseti was a human-headed god who protected the liver jar and the south. He was protected by the goddess Isis. Hapi was a baboon-headed deity protecting the north and the lung jars. He was defended by Nemesis. Dian-Mutef was a jackal-headed god who protected the stomach and the east. He was protected by Neith. And I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name, was a falcon-headed god who protected the jar of intestines and the west, and you guessed it, was protected by Serqet, or Serqet. Serqet also was known as Lady of the Beautiful Tent and Mistress of the Beautiful House, as she defended the embalmer's tent, or, let's call him Cubacenith. I don't know if that's correct, but we'll move on. She also guarded the snake Apophis after he was imprisoned in the underworld. There's also a myth with two variants in which Neith and Serqet watch over Anum, as he presents a very enjoyable gift to his wife. If you don't know what I mean by that, then it's a good thing that I keep this channel PG. Anyways, one variation says that Serqet and Neith observe this process of Anum giving the gift to his wife, whereas the other variation says that Serqet and Neith watched over the area. Or rather, it doesn't necessarily say that Neith was there watching over the area as well, but the point is that the two goddesses weren't actually watching Anum during his process of giving his wife this gift. Anywho's, this granted Serqet the title of being considered a goddess of marriage. Scorpions came in bulk across the Egyptian desert. Female scorpions were bigger than the males and boasted a larger supply of poison, which is probably a good reason as to why Serqet was considered to be a female goddess. Scorpion stings were dreadfully painful and caused a shortage of breath. They were incredibly fatal to younger people, i.e. children, and older people, i.e. old people. Thanks to this, the Egyptians believed that Serqet could breathe life into the deceased as part of a rebirth process, or the rebirthing process. As part of her benevolent nature, Serqet was sometimes depicted as a water scorpion. This is kind of in contrast with more vile nature of poison in and of itself. She was also considered to be a god of healing or medicine, which also adds this sort of duality that we have with Serqet. She's not a black and white god, outright evil or outright good, though I am leading up to an example here of a story in which may possibly make you not very much like Serqet, but we'll see. But scorpions and snakes were considered to be great enemies of humanity, and by giving tributes to Serqet, she was considered to be a being who was able to ward off scorpions, and sometimes snakes as well. But also there were a series of snake charmers who could help ward off snake attacks, and there were a number of spells specifically devised to protect people against scorpions. Death by scorpion poison or the venom of snakes was fairly common in Egyptian society, so of course the Egyptians were very much right to be afraid of their poisons and venoms. Now on to the story. Whilst Isis was pregnant with Horus, and needed a place of protection from the wrath of Set, as because of her pregnancy she was less able to defend herself from his wrath, she was protected by 7 scorpions, who, in some variations of the myth, are a representation or special form of Serqet. A rich woman refused to allow Isis entry into the house, whilst a poor woman accepted her into her hut with open arms. The scorpions were very angry at the rich woman, and let their poison into the one that they called Tith, who snuck into the hut of the rich woman and stung her baby with the strongest poison imaginable. The rich woman was in tears, and Isis took pity upon her. By knowing the names of each and every one of the scorpions, she was able to drive out the poison out of the baby's body, thus saving the baby, and the rich woman gave Isis all of her earthly possessions in gratitude. We can see both the benevolence of Serqet in that she aided Isis even though there was a threat of becoming a potential enemy of Set, who, let's remember, was powerful enough to ward off the Apep, the great chaos serpent, with nothing more than his own strength alone. This was also one of the reasons why, in a variation of the myth between Horus and Set, Set is given half of Egypt because he's respected as being a very powerful god, physically at the very least. However, Serqet also intended to take the life of a child in order to teach a woman a lesson, which is considerably cruel, especially when you consider the fact that the child would have been innocent in all of this. And I say child, it was a baby. Serqet was, of course, as I said, considered to have some sort of power over the breath of life, meaning that she could have easily revived the baby and acted as if there was nothing that had happened. But would the baby be feeling pain in that case during its death or just before its death? Is that okay? And also, is it okay for us to consider the actions of Serqet to be the same and judge them in the same way as, say, the actions of us humans or even the actions of another god such as Hera? Is there still that same boundary there? Hera, when she did an awful thing to a victim, there was no attempt to fix or right the wrong that she had left in the world. Serqet, on the other hand, in this instance, not only could have righted the wrong, but wasn't even given a chance to necessarily do so, as the whole reason why she even put the wrong in the world in the first place was to teach a mother a lesson. This story really just exemplifies that Serqet, again, there's a balance between her being all good and all bad necessarily. Egyptian mythology, it's fairly easy to see it as fairly black and white, because a lot of the gods are clearly shown as being all bad or all good in a few variations of the myth, so depending on how much of these variations you're exposed to, you might think that it's a fairly black and white mythology, but it's really not. Set is a god who, you know, if you only get one set of the myths, he's a villain, but by the end of his conflict with Horus, in some variations, he's a joint ruler with Horus. They come together and work out their differences, and they both split Egypt into 2 and rule half of it each. Of course, in other variations, Set is branded as just completely evil and banished from the realms of the gods, and Horus rules Egypt alone. I suppose getting a full picture with this mythology is fairly important, as it can really skew your opinions of the gods and make you miss a lot of the sort of messages behind the mythology. It is one of my favorite mythologies, and also it's funny to see how, after looking at Serqet's mythology, Hi-Rez could have taken a completely different turn with her. They decided to give her a full human appearance and only a scorpion's tail. But they could have made her a guardian, because there are several references to Serqet being a sort of protector of many different things. They could have given her more of a body akin to Khepri, let's say, given her perhaps a heal of some sort, maybe even a revive skill. They could have easily made Serqet a sort of mage if they wanted to. And they went with the most interesting route, making her an assassin. I'm not sure how this would work. Perhaps they could release maybe an alternate version of Serqet and explore different routes with her. I'd be interested to see that. And also that could open up a whole other interesting avenue with their gods, because then we could have this thing of going back and looking at different aspects of different gods and goddesses and releasing new forms or new classes for these gods that already exist in Smite. Of course, that could create issues in and of itself, but I think it's a cool idea all the same. But let me know what you think of Serqet. Do you think that she's outright evil, outright good? There's a balance between her being good and evil? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video and feel like it deserves it, leave a like. Don't, there's also a dislike button, but why would you use that? And if you're new to the channel, of course, subscribe. But up next, of course, Apollo's going to go into the polls, Zeus is going to go into the polls, and Aphrodite shall be in the polls as well. I think someone also requested Amaterasu, can't remember, I'll look through the comments, maybe not, but we'll see. And if there's a god that you would like me to cover specifically next, leave a request in the comment section below and I will add them to the polls. But until the next video, thank you very much for watching. I have been Prime, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.